This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Caroline Goodner, CEO at OrganiCare. OrganiCare's mission is to create all natural and organic over-the-counter healthcare products that are safe, effective, and simply better than the petrochemical-based, drug-laden products used by most consumers today. OrganiCare offers a range of all-natural and organic first aid, oral care, and feminine care products under two brands, Curoxin and FemiClear. All OrganiCare products are made from a unique process that combines the antibacterial healing effects of pure olive oil with life-giving oxygen. This formula has been found to be extremely effective at healing anything from minor cuts to mouth sores to vaginal yeast infections. Caroline, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Great. So what was your background before OrganiCare? What did you do before this?
I can't remember doing anything besides being an entrepreneur. So this is actually the fourth company that I'm on. Started my first company right out of business school, which was a long time ago. And so, I've just really enjoyed kind of founding and growing businesses. So OrganiCare that I'm doing now is my fourth.
Great. And so you see a lot of startups and investing over the years. What's your advice for people investing in startups in this sector?
I really feel like it has to start with the product that you're selling. It's got to be different. There are so many crowded spaces or categories that I personally wouldn't want to be in just because it's so hard to be differentiated. I feel like differentiation that's easy to communicate, that the consumer cares about, and that hopefully can yield you a price premium is a great place to be. So, true product differentiation to me is paramount.
And so on the other side of the table, what's your advice for people that are investing in startups or running startups?
You got to really think about how you're going to grow the company. It's easy to chase every sales opportunity and be in distribution in places that you may not be successful. And so for consumer products, you want to be as thoughtful as you can about where you want your distribution initially and how are you going to make sure that you're successful in the distribution that you get in to begin with. That's one of the difficulties is people want revenue, they want to start growing, but if you don't grow in kind of a very planful way and hopefully in the channels that matter most to you and that you can be successful in, you may end up having troubles down the road being in distribution that doesn't really make great sense for you.
Great. So what excites you right now?
I am loving what we're focused on right now, which is really our FemiClear brand and doing quote unquote below the belt feminine healthcare products. So we focus on those, feminine health issues that are embarrassing or even shameful for some women. And we really want to help talk about those things, bring them to light, destigmatize them, and make women not feel embarrassed or ashamed. Because we're talking about things like yeast infection, vaginal itching, and even genital herpes is our latest product. And it's exciting to me because there's been very little innovation, almost none in these areas. And, in fact, for genital herpes, there is no OTC treatment at all right now in major retail. And so we're really creating a new category. So I find that to be super exciting.
Great. Well, let's talk about the state of consumer product goods. How do you see the industry evolving?
There are a number of different ways. We're riding one of those waves, and that is the shift to natural and organic. The natural and organic movement in food and beverage has been going on for a long time, 10, 20 years. And so that's very well established. People are moving to, better for you food, snacks, beverages. And then it kind of took over the beauty and personal care category. And so you started looking at ingredients on your shampoos and your deodorants, and people are migrating to natural and organic. In the OTC kind of pharmacy, over-the-counter healthcare products aisles, very little has happened in that area, and we really want to make a big difference. We want to, kind of help transform the OTC aisles and displace, or at least create a much better for you alternative than the drug and chemical products that are on the OTC shelves now.
And so what's the biggest change you see coming up?
One of the, everybody talks about COVID, and one of the biggest shifts that COVID helped contribute to is the migration to shopping online. That was already happening. Of course, we all know that Amazon's a monster. It's been growing and growing and can barely keep up with itself. But the migration to shopping online really at other retailers, Walmart.com, Target.com, every retailer has its own .com, and they're all trying to figure out, how to keep up with the consumer push that way. From what I've heard, there was almost like a speeding up of this consumer behavior to migrate online by about 2 years because of the pandemic. So what would have taken 2 years happened overnight thanks to COVID.
Great. So how do you describe the healthcare OTC space to investors? What do you tell them to think about in this space?
Again, that whole natural organic ingredients is important. I think it's important in OTC, but what matters most is efficacy. And so it isn't enough to be natural in the OTC sector, because if you have a problem like a yeast infection, it needs to be cleared. A woman that has that problem can't just use a natural product if it's not also very effective. And so we're in a lucky position in that our products, we always lead our messaging with efficacy and how well our products kill yeast, for example, in the yeast infection category. For other brands that are natural, we don't see the same kind of efficacy claims that we can make. And so I would say that would be a watch out by an investor, is make sure it's not just natural and branded well. If it's a healthcare product, it also needs to work.
And what's an example startup that fits that model?
Well, we think we are. Our brands, Femaclear, for yeast infection and for herpes and vaginal itching, they all are demonstrated to work. And one of the things that we do, because there is a healthy skepticism by a lot of consumers about natural products, especially in the healthcare space, we prove that our products do what they say they do through objective third-party independently validated science. So we've done in vitro testing, we've done clinical studies to demonstrate that our products work as described.
So what are the challenges in this space for a startup? What do you face in launching and running a company here?
Gosh, there's a lot of different things that can trip you up. Regulatory is always a big one. You've got the FDA to contend with, and you need to make sure that you follow the FDA regulations. That's really important. Another issue is production. And a lot of startups, especially, have to rely on a manufacturer, a co-manufacturer, in order to make their products. We were lucky in that we early on realized we're going to need to set up our own production line. We've got a pretty proprietary process and IP around the base technology that we use in our products. And so we set up our production line in 2019, started making our own products in 2020, and completely became independent at the end of last year to where we're making all of our own products. And so those, those are two areas where, if you don't have the regulatory know-how, you don't have the production clout with your co-manufacturer, which a lot of startups don't because they're too small, you can run into issues there.
And what should the investor know about this space before they invest money?
CPG requires serious investment in order to get known. It takes a fair amount of money to build a brand. Brand building is hard, especially in this really noisy, fragmented, kind of media savvy world. And so to get your brand awareness up requires serious investment. And so, if you're doing well, you're going to even want more capital for growth. And so I would say that, an investor should understand that that's kind of the nature of CPG. You also want the fundamentals of the business model to be strong. And by that, I mean gross margin. Gross margin matters a lot. It allows you to spend money on marketing and things like that. And if your margins are thin, there's going to be very little to help promote the product.
Wow, I see you have quite good gross margins on your product. How do you achieve that?
Yeah, we're lucky that our gross margins are upwards of 80%. The process that we've honed, and because we have our own production line, we are lucky to have those as our financials.
Well, that's great. Well, there are a lot of products on the market, a lot of new applications and sectors coming up. If you had to point to one or two to be really good opportunities for investors to pursue, what would you put at the top of the list today?
other than ours, which I think, is a really tremendous opportunity. And, we are raising money right now. We do see a lot of investment in products like beauty, personal care products that have CBD. I don't know if CBD is going to be a fad or a long-term, valued ingredient. I've looked for, as a company that prides itself on having objective science as the thing that backs up our messaging. I haven't seen much in the way of CBD, scientific claims that they can back up, but it could be that, I'm not really well versed in it, but I think it's a powerful statement that you can make if you can say, a third party lab or, kind of company did some studies that demonstrated and proved that the claim that you're making, you can make. I think, so many people believe in CBD that, just putting it on the label may be persuasive enough to sell some consumers. But I think long-term, there's got to be sort of proof in the pudding.
Great. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
Well, I mentioned that we are raising money now. And so we're doing a $7 million round and we've got about 6 of it committed. So we're looking to raise that last $1 million. So would love to talk to anybody who might be interested in that.
Well, that's great. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Reach out to me directly. Caroline@OrganiCare.com is my direct email.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. Want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Thank you, Hall. I really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Hall T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.